Hello and welcome, Neko AV here with another video, and of course it's going to be the real problems with modern music. And there's only two, which is that one, too many people are cynical, and number two, the fact that there's no unified pop culture. Pop culture is divided into different types of pop culture. And that's it. That took less than 30 seconds, so if that's all you want to hear, and there you go. You could click off the video and watch something else. But if you want more information, here's the additional info. For starters, when it comes to the whole thing with pop culture, we've had certain things where things kind of split into its own little niches here and there over time, And when it comes to music, yeah, there were those things that would be popular, but even back when we were divided into clans and tribes and such, every tribe had their own little music and whatnot. But that would be the common thing for that group of people, for that community. And even though things would expand further with your churches and your hamlets and your kingdoms, there would, of course, be unifying songs for that specific region. But eventually we get to a point where we're able to communicate more broadly, and thus we end up with the superstar, okay? And a lot of people would eventually come to know names like Michael Jackson and Britney Spears, and there would always be those names that would have a global presence. However, as time went on, what was once unified and seemed global ended up becoming less and less global, and things were more divided. I already spoke at length about this in previous videos, and so has many others whom I've referenced. But yeah, the short of it is that some trends happened and some legislation happened in the 90s, and communities of one type ended up being given a larger audience, whereas other communities didn't, but still thrived by communicating without the mass broadcast. That is basically a short and simplified version of things. Such as how you have your pop with your Backstreet Boys and your Spice Girls, and then you have the rock, where you have one group of people will be listening to Nirvana, another group of people will be listening to The Pillows, etc., etc. Okay, so you have different sort of subsets, different sort of groups, and as time went on, these subdivisions end up becoming more subdivisions, and we get to a point where pop culture is really weird because there is no one pop culture, but rather multiple pop cultures. For example, if we were to look at female vocalists, you're going to have those huge groups who look at someone like Iron Mouse and refer to her as like the greatest vocalist ever. But there's also going to be a lot of people who never heard of her. And for those people, it would be someone like Adu, okay? But even then, when it comes to that, there's a whole lot of people who respect Adu's vocal range, but and then you have a lot of people who don't know her. And for those people, the popular female vocalist would be Charli XCX or CXC, I don't know, this Charlie girl. Someone I just recently found out about, I found out about thanks to that video I did on Adam Conover, when Adam Conover mentioned her. Didn't realize that she has like a huge following, a huge audience. But despite that, there's going to be people who don't know her. And of course, can't forget about Taylor Swift, which everyone knows about, but most people don't even know most of her songs. I mean, hell, I could tell you that her best song is Pineapple Coconut, and a lot of people will be like, yes, I'm a Swiftie, I know Pineapple Coconut. And when the fact is, Taylor Swift never did a song called Pineapple Coconut. Watch, after I said that, word's going to get around, Taylor Swift's going to find out, and she's going to be like, Oh, that would be a fun song to make. I don't expect any writing credit on that one. But yeah, like, even though you have those that should be more well known, like Taylor Swift, the vast majority of people, even if they know her by name and appearance, they won't know her songs. Even with what I was saying, be like, oh yeah, she has a song called Pineapple Coconut and Antihero. And yeah, Antihero is a real song. But yeah. Although it would be funny if I were to say that and then there's like this one music video where all four are like, nah, that's not gonna happen. But no, pop culture is really weird like that because, well, yeah, the Swifties would definitely be able to tell you like 4 or 5 different songs, maybe an entire album's worth of music that they listen to a lot. That's their favorite. But someone who isn't a Swiftie, they're not gonna know. And even though Anti-Hero gets played a lot on the radio, a lot of people probably won't know that's a Taylor Swift song. But of course, this isn't just the whole divide of how pop culture is divided into separate different pop cultures, rather. There is also the fact that people are cynical, you know, such as how what I went into when talking about with the Normie video and what I built off of what I learned from Aiden Paladin and David Stewart about normies and so-called real-life NPCs. The fact is that some people are not going to know that any of the others exist. You ask them about popular music, they'll say Taylor Swift, but they're not going to talk about Charlie. They're not going to talk about Adu. They're not going to talk about Mouse. They're just going to talk about how, yeah, there's this blonde girl named Taylor Swift that gets people's attention, but they won't even know. Even if Anti-Hero is playing, they're not going to know it's a Taylor Swift song. But at the same time, they would look at the other three who are not Taylor Swift and say, well, why would I listen to those people? You know, Matter of fact, Iron Mask is the kind of person where, for some reason, when someone goes to bring up someone like her, someone always got to mention Logan Paul and Jake Paul. And it's like, yeah, I get it, internet. But of course, that is the thing. A lot of people are cynical, and like if you look at someone, be like, oh, it's someone on the internet. They're like these people who did this stupid rap feud nonsense, and it's like, so why listen to that? Despite the fact that huge difference between Iron Mouse and Logan Paul and Jake Paul when it comes to music, huge difference. But some people don't believe that, and even with that dude, some people will be like, oh, quirky Japanese woman. No, you don't even know if she's Japanese. But some people will think that and be like, well, I don't listen to that anime stuff, even though there's nothing anime related with I do. But then again, I've also seen people refer to video game characters as anime stuff, despite the fact that there's no anime that exists with such characters. You know? And the list goes on. A lot of people have this very cynical perception on what music is and stuff like that. And they look at things like records, whatnot. And above all else, also, is if it's not popular to them and they don't hear other people talking about it, then to them, it doesn't exist. And that is the big thing. A lot of people think it doesn't exist. And even if you show them it and say, oh, this is what goes on, some people will just dismiss it because people within their social circles don't talk about it. You know, they don't hear about it on the news or whatever, you know, and that is a thing. Like, and I do remember I was once cynical like that as well when it came to pop music because there's a whole bunch of pop artists out there that I hear a lot of people talking about that are big, such as this Tate woman. I don't know her name. Didn't really look too much into her music, but I am aware she exists. But there was a time where if you were to ask me anything about that, I would not know. I would know what's popular in other social circles, but not in that type of pop culture. Which is funny that a lot of people also refer to it as mainstream, but looking at how things are, nothing is mainstream anymore. Except for whatever outrage is going on with the news or what other kind of nonsense is making people feel cynical. Which is also why I myself had made a point to stop watching TV. Surprisingly enough, past maybe a year now, the only time I ever turn on the TV is to watch the Weather Channel, and that's it. Gotta know what the weather's like when I go off to work, or if I'm gonna go on one of my days where I'm out adventuring, walking around and whatnot. But yeah, other than the Weather Channel, I'd stay away from the TV because I know it's a lot of people tend to get some really cynical and rather negative takes because of something they see on TV. I mean, as someone who's into both gaming and furries, I could tell you loads about CSI alone. That's the absolute nonsense. Then again, seems like the only kind of people CSI likes to go on positively about are anyone who's sport-like. But that's a whole other topic. But when it comes to music, yeah, there's like very little that people really know, which is also why I did two videos on people misunderstanding the things with music, because there's a lot people don't understand, or rather, the average person doesn't understand. The so-called normie. But they like to think they understand because of what others tell them, and oftentimes this is what shapes pop culture, and because of the negative said of those outside of that circle, a lot of times that does also play into people having a cynical view of what exists outside of their social circles, you know? And so you not just have people who assume that, well, it doesn't exist, you also have people who will be saying, well, it's probably bad anyways because it's not popular in their circle. But I do believe that the only reason it's not popular within those people's social circles is because they themselves don't allow it to be popular. They themselves, along with their friend groups and whatnot, end up gatekeeping something that they probably may enjoy. So that's what I had to say with this video. The long version of what's wrong with modern music, which is that people are cynical. People push away what they are not told is good. And you have so many different social circles that just don't interact, thanks in large part to these people who just push others away. So with all that said, I am NeckAwayV, and I thank you for listening.